So these bikes came with an 18 or 20 millimeter Mikuni. I think it's 20. As you can see, it's very dirty. Actually, some of the old hoses are still on and they are completely dry rotted. You have the fuel feed, the idler screw, choke to add some extra fuel. You have other types chokes that lower the air coming in, just to get a rich mixture. And the bowl here, the fuel bowl. So let's start by taking this apart and see what's in there and what's not. These are pretty simple carburetors. These are very good to learn on. Oh, that's actually not too bad. So you have this float here. So the way this works, you have the bowl, fuel comes in through the fuel feed here. That's I'll show you this in a minute. It fills up with fuel and the floats start floating, go figure. And in the fuel feed there is a little needle, and the bowl pushes the needle into the feed tube, and that closes it. So let's remove the float. Here you can see this little needle. There we go. And this little needle plugs up the fuel feed. This is still fine. I don't know if you can see this through camera, but the hole is not plugged, so that's a good sign. So this one is fine. Then you have two jets, the primary and secondary jet. Here we have the throttle. When you twist the throttle cable, this part goes up and down into this slot here. It actually doesn't fit now because of all the dirt. This needle actually blocks the primary jet, just the same way like the float does with the fuel feed. So raising the throttle, or twisting the throttle, slides this piece up so more air can come through, and also lets more fuel in through the jets. Changing these jets changes the mixture, therefore you can have a lean or rich mixture in the bike when you change these jets. So let's start by taking them apart. This actually looks fine. Nothing is actually clogged up. Air still comes through. And this tiny jet here. This one is clogged up. A little bit. I'm going to throw everything into the ultrasonic cleaner and clean the jets up with compressed air after that. All the parts have been cleaned in the ultrasonic cleaner. Came out all right. So now it's time to assemble it back together. First up will be the jets. You got this tiny jet here. All of them have been blown out with compressed air as well. Then the primary jet. Just hand tight, don't over tighten these because these can break off, and if they're stuck, that's another issue. The fuel feed. The needle to stop the fuel feed goes in. The float goes in like this. And the little axle for the float. And then we have a gasket that doesn't fit. I'm guessing this is for a 16mm or maybe even less. Fuck. Luckily we have some gasket sheet, so we can actually make a new gasket. I actually found the old gasket. So we can trace this a bit nicer. So let's see if this works. Yeah, it's not perfect, but it'll work. And then we have the fuel bowl. Oh. And then the choke works fine. And then last but not least, yes, that's good. A rebuilt carburetor. Nice. The carb is back on the bike. I've installed a throttle. Works like it should. Perfect. The only thing that's left then is install the wiring loom, a key, and add some fuel. And then in theory, this bike should start. So the ignition system on this bike is a point style ignition system. This will probably be very hard to see. But here you have the points. And the way these work is at top dead center, when the piston is at top dead center, these open, the contacts or the points open, and they cause a spark. That's a basic explanation. Of course, there's way more to it, but that's a simple explanation as to how these work. So the way you adjust these, at top dead center, the points have to be open at 0.35 millimeters. I got this gauge here that I use. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but now we're at top dead center. You can see the points opening. So I'm going to try and film this, but I don't think it will be easy. So the way I adjust these points is by taking a caliper, put it in the spark plug hole, and rotate the engine. You can actually see here on the chain, this is the forward direction. And also there's a little arrow here on this on the flywheel that shows direction. So you take the calipers, put them in the spark plug hole. This way they go down and it goes back up. And right here, this is top dead center. So now we're at top dead center. Now we have to adjust the points to 0.35 millimeters. As you can see, there's not much space. Let's see. They fit, but they have a lot of resistance. So they're either dirty or the gap is not enough. I actually think the gap is fine. It fits with a bit of resistance. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take some sandpaper and some brake cleaner. I'm going to clean them up. I got some sandpaper, fold it in half. Open the points by hand. And then just a little bit of sanding. Because if there is any corrosion, this won't work. Then we will have no spark. Should be fine. And then a little bit of brake cleaner. Should be good. And for those of you wondering about the LEDs, it's a bit annoying how this part can be dark on the lower side of the bike. And I figured, well, maybe put some LEDs on the table so we can have some extra light. I went to the store, bought the cheapest LED strip that has an actual power socket and not batteries. And yeah, I can have 10 or 8 different colors, but no white. Oh, that's off. So it kinda defeats the purpose. I have a little bit of light, but not the way I wanted. The idea was good, but the execution was a bit less. So for the rest of the electrical system, we have a remanufactured wiring loom. Again, this is also not 100% original. It is actually for a FS1, about of the same year as this bike, because I can't find any RD50 ones. I'm even failing to find a good schematic of the electrical wiring, so I can't even reproduce a wiring loom. But we have the entire electrical system for the FS1, so if it works, it works. I'd rather have a bike that's not 100% original, but that works, than to have one that doesn't work. So, light switch, horn button. We also got the ignition switch itself with a brand new key. Coil, should be mounted on the frame. And spark plug cap. So I've mounted the wiring a little bit of temporarily, just to see if we have spark. And the key is on already. Since we don't have a Kickstarter, I'm going to try and rotate the engine like this. And let's hope we have something. Nothing yet. I'm going to look into the wiring, see if I have something wrong, and hopefully we got some spark then. I was able to find a donor engine, of which I stole the ignition from, and the Kickstarter axle. The gearboxes and ignition are actually all the same for these era of Yamaha bikes. So for the RD, the DT and TY, they all have the same gearbox and ignition. So I was able to source the ignition from this bike, or this engine at least. And now we have spark. So we got the new ignition in. The old ignition, something's wrong with it, I don't know if, because it doesn't give any spark. This new or old ignition gives spark. So we have that. I've also installed this Kickstarter axle. So now when we put the engine back together, we can now actually have a Kickstarter. So I'm going to start mounting the ignition cover, install the clutch, see if the clutch actually engages and disengages. And then I think we are ready for a test fire. The clutch cover is on. The clutch works. That's nice. So the only thing that's left to do is get the new gasket on, get the cover on, and add oil. Somehow get some fuel into this carb. This is it, the moment of truth. I've added some fresh oil. I've put the gas tank of the black RD50 just on here just to have some fuel for the carb. The key is on, so I think we are ready to see if this bike wants to go. Whoa! Come on. Woo! Nice! I'm going to mount the exhaust and hopefully we can keep her running then. The exhaust is on and we're going to try again to see if it wants to run. Oh. This exhaust is actually bent because it was very hard to mount and the Kickstarter is hitting it. But I'm not going to care for right now. I want this thing running. Maybe I'll just zip tie it out of the way. Come on. Yes! smoky. Controlling the idle with my hand. The throttle is way too high. It runs. I'm super excited. I have to finish up, mount the coil, because if you watch closely, you can see sparks flying from the head. And then I need to adjust the carb, because I think the throttle slide is actually too high. It runs a bit high on idle, and the idler screw doesn't do anything. And other than that, it smokes a lot because of all the oil that's in it, but that's fine. So I think I'm going to make another video about fine-tuning this engine so it runs a bit nicer. So thank you for watching, and if you liked it, please leave a like, and if you want to follow the build, consider subscribing. Thank you, and see you in the next one.